Certainly gotten emails from me. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I know you burned a lot of energy on the mountain, and it's a late Wednesday night, so thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate it.
But there's no school tomorrow.
Night is a great chance every year in the 20-some years we've been doing RTU to get the young people and the caring adults on the same page. So I really appreciate everybody's commitment. I know a lot of working families, it's hard to come out on a late evening. We try to get dinner on the table beforehand and whatnot, but my colleague Meg Perez-Cuomo of West River Valley Thrives put together a wonderful presentation. We took it for a test drive on our side of the mountain a couple of weeks ago, and it is fantastic, engaging, interactive, and I'm really excited to introduce her to you and get you this great information. Thank you.
I think everybody here probably knows who I am. I'm Meg Perez-Cuomo, the Programs and Youth Engagement Coordinator for West River Valley Thrives. I spoke at the beginning of the year regarding the co-curricular policy that I updated regarding substance abuse and substance use for people involved in co-curricular activities. Before I start, Sarah Webb, my co-worker, was handing out little note cards with a number on them. Raise your hand if you do not have a note card. Everybody needs one. Okay, so we'll take a minute, make sure everybody gets a note card, and then we'll get started.
Is everybody ready to have note card?
Well, I suppose, for the sake of saving time, I'll just go ahead and get started while Sarah's passing out the note cards. Thank you, Sarah, you're wonderful. My lovely coworker, Caitlin, is on the computer here for me. So we're gonna start out with a quick icebreaker. I wanna say first that we're gonna be going through a lot, talking about some scenarios in regards to restorative justice. Not everybody might know what that means and what that looks like and how it can be implemented, and that's perfectly fine. Nobody should have any bias in this room. If you are not sure what we're talking about, that's okay. Raise your hand, ask questions. If you'd rather ask a question to me at the end, that's fine too. But we're just gonna respect everybody in the group and where everybody kind of stands with their knowledge. So around the room, excuse me, I have some white poster boards all around the room, numbered 1 through 10. So if you have a number 1 card, you're going to go to that group. If you have a number 2, you're going to go to that spot. A number 3, and so on. So I'm going to ask everybody to go to those spaces, and then we'll do our warm-up activity. So I'm going to give you guys like a minute or so. What I want you to do is form a circle, okay, with your group. One person, whoever's holding the balloon, is going to start off. And you need to think of a word that starts with the letter that you chose for your group. And as you go around the group, I don't want you to go around in one circle, I want you to zigzag. So I was the social emotional learning instructor for the district for a couple years, and this is something that I practice with students. This practices and helps you pay attention, helps you with your listening skills. Because if you just go around in a circle, you're going to expect when the balloon's going to come to you. But if you kind of zigzag, then you're not going to expect it, so it forces you to pay attention. So get in a circle. Let me see circles. Super easy, circle. When I say go, you're going to pass the balloon to each person in your group, and you're going to think of a letter that starts with, think of a word that starts with the letter that your group chose. Group team members, you cannot repeat the last word or a word that somebody else already said. So pay attention to what everybody else is saying. And if you repeat a word, you have to stop and start over. Okay? All right, I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. Go. Group B, what's happening? You guys stop. What's going on? So you can put the balloons down. We have one more activity that we're gonna do to warm up. We're gonna find some commonalities. I'm gonna give a couple minutes for this real quick. Talk amongst your group. I want you to come up with 3 commonalities. So 3 things that you all have in common. So if I was in one of your groups, I might say, I'm from northern New Hampshire, the Mount Washington Valley, and I climbed part of Mount Washington. Or I have a lot of pets and chickens, something like that. So 1 minute, come up with 3 commonalities. What were your 3 commonalities? Pets, foods, and hangout time? Being outside. What was the food bit? I mean, who doesn't like to eat? Okay. Group 9, what were your 3 commonalities? Shop at Riverbend. Who doesn't? Okay. Yeah. And what your shoe? Oh, yeah. I'm glad that you're all wearing shoes. I'm super proud of you guys. That's a hard thing to do sometimes. I often don't want to put shoes on. Okay, so we're going to keep moving on. Raise your hand if you've heard the term restorative practices. Raise your hand if you've heard that term. I said raise your hand if you've heard the term restorative practices. Okay, so a good bit of people. Okay. Who can tell me what that term means? And if somebody can tell me what that term means, you're going to get some smarties, because you're a smartie. I see you raising your hand.
Yeah.
What do you think restorative practice? You don't have to be right. It's okay. I'm not right a lot of the time, so it's fine.
It's an idea in lieu of some kind of like pretend suspension or like something absolute.
Absolutely.
Oh, so I didn't have to say the rest.
You got it. You got that. It's something else in lieu of something like a consequence, right? Caitlin, do you mind? Sorry. Who can give me an example of a restorative practice? Smarties are on the hook. Smarties. I'm going to call on random people if you don't want to raise your hand. Okay.
Resolving conflict without like a detention.
Resolving conflict. How could you resolve the conflict without resorting to detention? What do you think?
Just like talk it out.
Talk it out. Yes. Love it. Anybody else? Come on. Yes.
Or outside.
Okay, so we had cleaning over there. Can you think of something else? You and I have a circle, restored circles. Okay. One more. Anybody have an idea? Yeah? Let's do that. Productive conversations. Careful, we might get you in the eye. Okay, next slide. By how much do you think implementing restorative practices in schools can decrease the amount of out-of-school suspensions? Alan? Yeah, 18%. How many people believe that restorative practices can be implemented in other environments? How many believe restorative practices can be implemented in other environments such as home or the workplace? Raise your hand. Do you think this is just a school thing? Do you think you can work with restorative practices at home? I want to see hands. Let me know. Okay. What about in the workplace? Trusted adults that are in the room and students. Okay, I'm saying down over here saying everywhere. Yeah, you can implement restorative practices anywhere. So what are restorative practices? It says it right on the board over here, what the word restorative means. But can someone read that for me? You'll get a Smartie. Yes.
You want me to read it?
Yeah. Read it and you'll get a Smartie, right?
Having the ability to restore health, strength, or the feeling of well-being.
What do you think that means?
It's really under.
What do you think it means?
It makes it
It means that when someone makes a poor choice, yes, we can all read that, rather than being punished, rather than having a timeout, or being sent home, or getting a detention, it means they're afforded the opportunity to make their decision right. Right? Everybody makes poor choices, no one's perfect. But raise your hand if you think just being punished for a poor choice is helpful to you. You think, okay. I mean, in some instances it might be being punished, right? I guess depending on the circumstances. But 9 times out of 10, that isn't helpful. It's not going to work. It's not going to teach you a lesson and how to cope with that situation going forward. You're most likely just going to feel ignored or alienated, and it's not helpful. All right, so what are restorative practices? is the implementation of restorative practices help to reduce crime, violence, and bullying. Okay? It can improve human behavior, strengthen civil society, so it can make us all tighter, right? Close-knit community. It can help provide effective leadership, restore relationships, right? If you have a fight with a loved one or a best friend, restorative practices can, you might feel like you're not trusting that person so much or you're not comfortable with them. Restorative practices can help you through that. It can repair harm that's done in whatever incident or situation occurred. And it can build stronger and healthier connections with each other. Okay, it helps to build trust. So does this approach work? Okay. I might just start drawing random Smarties because I feel like that's kind of fun for me. So research is still ongoing. Scientists are studying restorative practices in schools and other environments every single day. And we're constantly getting more information, which is really helpful. But the benefits that many organizations, both schools and other settings, have experienced are shifting to restorative practices, and these are some of the most important. Okay, so it can help reduce exclusionary discipline, and improve academic performance. Again, you might not feel alienated and left out. You want to do well in class. Improves respect amongst peers, encourages all parties to take responsibility and accountability. I think that's something that even adults struggle with, right? As youth, you're still learning how to do that. I'm an older woman, and I struggle with that sometimes. And it overall reduces stress in the school community. So does this approach work? The University of Chicago researchers found that, Alan, you nailed this on the head, and I'm really proud of you, thank you for that, that schools that implemented restorative practices decreased their out-of-school suspensions by 18%, which also improved students' perspective of school climate. And I would imagine probably staff's perspective of school climate as well. This is a lot of information. So a 2021 study of the New York City public schools by the American Institute for Research, or AIR, found that disciplining students through suspension and expulsions did not reduce further misbehaviors. It had zero effect. Because again, what's the lesson if you're just sending a student home or providing a detention for them? Right, I got a big X over here. There's no lesson. You're not learning, you're not taking accountability for yourself and your actions, and you're not gaining any tools to ensure you're not making those not so great choices again in the future. All right, so we're gonna watch this 2-minute video. I love this. I think it really kind of explains restorative practices really well, and then we're gonna continue.
Our world is changing at a breathtaking pace. Social patterns that have long characterized human life are changing dramatically around the globe, diminishing social bonds within families, schools, workplaces, and communities. But humans are hardwired to connect. Just as we need food, shelter, and clothing, we also need strong and meaningful relationships to thrive. With all this in mind, what is restorative practices? Restorative practices is an emerging social science that studies how to strengthen relationships between individuals and within communities. When put into practice, the effects are profound. In schools, students experience greater safety and sense of belonging, resulting in improved behavior, less bullying, and less violence. In workplaces, leaders facilitate direct communication among staff and address conflict as it arises. The result is higher performance, greater accountability, and effective collaboration. In criminal justice, new options allow victims and offenders, friends and family, to repair the emotional harm caused by crime. Throughout our neighborhoods, restorative practices give regular people more voice in the issues that matter most. In a nutshell, restorative practices is the science of relationships and community. Your individual daily interactions have a big impact on the world around you, at your job, with young people, and throughout your community. How we relate matters. This video was brought to you by the International Institute for Restorative Practices. To learn more, attend our flagship event, Basic Restorative Practices, enroll in a graduate course, or join us at a world conference.
Call in and try and figure out what's going on with the student, and maybe even call in some of the other students and think about some ways to resolve that. Some resolution would be, some other students said they could bring in materials to replenish what was taken. So yeah, that's where we got with that.
Thank you guys, I think that was really great. Before I move on to group 2, I'm seeing other people having separate conversations, and I just want to remind everybody to be respectful of everybody in the room. Give them a chance to speak. You know, people going through their scenarios, you might be able to learn something from the scenario that they have and the resolutions that they've come up with. So please just be respectful, okay? Group 2, this is my... Somebody's gonna get a lollipop.
Okay, hello. Our situations, we had a couple of students that were fighting at recess. One complained that the other bothered him because he wasn't good at sports, and then the other one retaliated by mocking his hair and clothing, and then it got worse, and they got into a physical altercation. So and then there were some support people around that didn't exactly know what was going on. So we thought that a restorative circle would probably be best for this group so that everybody could come together and have a chance to talk, have a mediator, hear the other side, and kind of, maybe learn something about each other and kind of find some common ground so that they could figure out their differences.
Thank you guys, nice job. Group 3.
Our scenario was Megan is having trouble in English class. Instead of seeking help, she begins acting out. She disrupts, calls out, and laughs at other students, especially when they have the answers right. Sometimes she even sings out loud and makes other noises while the rest of the class is trying to work. So we said that before, maybe she was not in class for some reason, or she has something else going on outside of school. But ultimately, she's just having trouble in that class. During the scenario, she's singing, calling out, laughing, and just being disruptive in general. And then a restorative practice that could happen would be checking in with her privately and calmly approaching her and not calling her out and having a conversation with her about it. And then some possible outcomes are she could take it well and feel supported and try to improve herself or try harder, or she could not respond and continue to behave like that, or she could shut down, get upset, and escalate the situation. And if that happens, you could try to use a different type of restoration to talk to her again.
Nice job, guys. All right. Group 4, you guys are rock stars. I don't even need to be here. You know what you're doing.
Okay, so scenario we had, Bo shows up for school one day and decides he's had enough. He leaves the school building and hides out in a nearby park. His parents think he's at school and get very confused when the teacher calls to check on how he's feeling. We thought for restorative practice, they could get parents, counselor, or the principal and teachers. Okay. Never mind. Before that, he goes to school, he gets dressed. During, he doesn't want to go to school, so he goes and hides, and he's had enough. And after school, he could presumably get in trouble, but learn a lesson from it. For the restorative practice, talk with the counselor, figure out why he doesn't like school, but maybe he's being bullied, maybe he has trouble with the schoolwork, sort that out. They could try and find him a buddy. Some outcomes, he could realize his mistakes. They could try and figure out a solution so he stays at school. Or if he doesn't respond well to it, then he might just ignore it or be a bit rebellious and try and get out. For some bad outcomes, if he keeps doing it, he might get suspended. They're very insistent that I read, they might chain him up. And cited at 7:50 p.m. on Wednesday, February 5th, 2025, Jacob Howe said, "What if he plays Among Us with his friends as a restorative practice?"
Great job, guys. I love the detail. All right, group 5. Don't be shy, come on. I'm not shy, somebody's got this.
Ours was about a kid who threw a paper ball at another student. And we came up with before that maybe he didn't have enough sleep and he was bored, or maybe he had an argument with a friend. And then during he threw the paper, after he was asked to like throw the paper away, and he refused to. And the restorative practice that we picked was be curious, why did he do this? Write an apology, ask him to notice how it affected classmates and possible outcomes, was write an apology, and like refuse to engage / participate.
Nice job, guys. I'm gonna point out, I really like that you said write an apology. That's something when I, in my youth, when I was not behaving properly, my parents always made me write an apology. Like that was part of kind of like our restorative practices at home. And it really forced me to think about what I did and how it affected everybody else around me, not just me and my outcome, rather than just talking with them in the moment. Like it really made me sit down and think about it and how kind of crummy what I did was. So I love that. Thank you guys for thinking of that. Thanks.
Our scenario was Sasha was walking through the lunchroom with her lunch when her table of other students begins mocking her. Sasha tells them to stop, but they continue. Sasha then throws her open milk carton at the table and covers them in chocolate milk. No one else witnessed it, but a student then tells a teacher later. And we said that they could talk about it with an adult. They could do some sort of bonding, like a project or a game or a sport in some way. Or they could all sit together at lunch. Yeah.
I actually like that you guys said kind of maybe doing like a forced activity, right? Like having them sit down and bond. I mean, if this girl's being bullied by her peers, maybe they're not a close group of friends, right? So having them do something to get to know each other, kind of like our commonalities at the very beginning of this, I think is a good way to start building that relationship, and it's very restorative. 7.
Our scenario is Chris had a weekend at home with his family, and he had been witnessing substance abuse in his home for quite some time, and he has been hungry and is not sleeping well during parties and at his home. And during class, Chris falls asleep, and his teacher yells across the room to wake Chris up, and Chris becomes upset and uses inappropriate language against his teacher and also makes a fake threat. And the prompts are what happened before, what happened during and after. And what happened before is his lack of sleep and him being hungry and his substance use. And what happened during is him falling asleep and getting yelled at and both parties being angry. And what happened after was language, dirty language, and then the threat. And then what type of restorative practice can be used. And then he could have went to a counselor to talk to different people and talk to a family member or friend. And he could have talked it out with the teacher and apologized. Or he could have had better communication and gotten more sleep and found a way to get more food so he wasn't hungry. And what are possible outcomes? Better home with substance use, better with his teacher relationship, and not getting in trouble at school.
That's really great. As we're moving on, I want to challenge you guys to think about, what if this is somebody that can't get more sleep? Maybe he is in an environment where he can't sleep, it's too loud. Maybe he's in a different place during the week. And what if, maybe think about why he's not getting enough food. Maybe there's a really large lack of access, right? Maybe they live way out in the woods, like a lot of people do, and it's just hard for his adults at home to get to the store, or maybe they can't afford it, right? So think about those kind of things, and maybe then how you can help that family. All right, group 8.
A scenario was Abby had a rough day at school. She feels she is being bullied by some of her peers. When she returns home from school, her mother asks her to promptly get her chores done before working on her homework. Abby lashes out and slams the door to her bedroom and hits the wall. What happened before was Abby was having a rough day in her classes, and then during school she got bullied, and then when she got home, she got mad at her mother. Types of restorative practice that can be used is asking how her day was when she gets home and giving her a 20-minute break before she has to get her chores done. Some outcomes are, if she keeps getting bullied, she can get depression. She can express her anger out, and there could also be a meeting about how she's getting bullied and feels with the school and with her parents.
Thank you, guys. All right, 2 more left. 9 and 10, if you want to, for the sake of time, just read your scenario and then what the restorative practices were that you talked about and the possible outcomes. I love it.
Okay, hello. Scenario 9. Liam was being disruptive in class, and the teacher walked up in front of Liam's friends and tried to address the situation. Liam got embarrassed and threw his school-issued laptop down on his desk, and then walked out of the classroom angrily. His teacher then calls the front office. What could have happened is his teacher probably could have pulled him aside because Liam was embarrassed, because he probably got defensive about being called out in front of his friends, because that can be embarrassing. So his teacher probably could have pulled him aside and addressed that situation privately. Yeah, and the outcome would have been like a lot more of like a cool, calm, understandable discussion between the two of them about the feelings and why Liam might be acting out in front of the class, instead of just sending him straight, or just like sending him straight to the office, or just like, yeah, right, that's good.
All right, group 10, here's my, choose at once, I just pick somebody at random, unless you want to volunteer.
So pretty much there's 2 siblings, Carl and Drew. The older one feels as though the younger one gets more attention than him. So basically, the older one took one of his little brother's video games and smashed it. Then the little brother began to cry. One of the possible outcomes could be who's responsible for it. You could sit in a discussion square, because there's 4 of them. And then Drew could pay for the video game.
Is that it? Do you have any other practices? Okay, I see, maybe make sure both kids are getting what they need. What's that last one? How parents replace the game, work on conflict resolution. This might also be a good setting to do a respect agreement. All right, so in the scenarios, it was kind of like a mix between things happening in school, things happening at home. We're gonna shift gears and talk about implementing restorative practices at home. So one thing that you can do is have family meetings. This is actually something I do with my kids at home. It's just the 3 of us. We sit down at least once a week, or even on our ride home from school, and we talk about how things are feeling at school, at work, kind of with our friends and our peers, how we're feeling about things at home. Maybe if we're not feeling good about something, what we can do to change that. Maybe my son and daughter have been arguing, kind of like scenario 10 over here, and I need to, you know, not make sure they're like WWE in my living room. So we're gonna have family meetings, okay? Did you like that little giggle? You're welcome for my service. All right, take a break. If my son is like rearing to go and he's having a really rough time, or my daughter and they've done something that I'm like, not cool, this is not happening, instead of just jumping down their throat and getting upset and yelling, calling them out, because really what good is that gonna do? It's just gonna amplify the situation and it's gonna make me feel worse in that moment. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna be like, listen, we need to take a time out, we need to pause. You're gonna chill in your room for a few minutes, I'm gonna chill in my room for a few minutes, we're gonna calm, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk to each other. And I'm also gonna give my child options. I think it's so easy for parents and other adults at home to just say, this is what you are going to do to make this right. And I feel like from my family, that doesn't always work. Now, my child might not understand why I'm choosing that, and they might not feel that it makes sense. And in the sake of helping my children to take accountability and responsibility for their actions, putting the ball in their court and asking them what they think they should do to make it right, kind of forces that accountability and that responsibility taking. Does that make sense? I'm not saying head nods, so I'm gonna go with it makes sense. All right, focus on relationship building. Talk to your child often. My kids and I have an amazing relationship because we are so open with each other about things that are happening in our lives, things that are going on at school, how they're feeling about their friends. We've really built a solid foundation, and it feels amazing. And because of that, we really don't have a lot of struggles at home. Get involved in their life and their interests. You know, your children are human beings too. It's really important to understand what their tics are, things that they like, things that they dislike, right? Build trust with your child. It's wonderful to be transparent to a point with your child so that they feel comfortable with you. Have those conversations that are really hard conversations. Your child at home is going to have trust and feel comfortable with you the more that you can do that. And remember that all behaviors have consequences. Some of those consequences might be natural consequences. Who can tell me, for the price of a Smartie, what a natural consequence is? Coco. Okay, so if you climb up a shelf and the shelf falls on you, okay, what do you think might happen if the shelf falls on you? You're probably gonna get hurt, right? Natural consequence. Thank you. Smarties, give it a Coco. Hand it over, thank you. Anybody else? Natural consequence? Black jacket?
You punch the wall and your hand hurts.
Okay, that's a good example. I want to hear an example from an adult too, because I have experienced some natural consequences in my life. Alan, you're not an adult. Thank you for raising your hand.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Grown up. Grown up, adult. Give me a natural consequence.
You have to take your kid to the doctor because you punched the wall.
Say it again.
You have to bring your kid to the doctor because he hit the wall.
Yeah. My kid punched the wall, or the shelf fell on them, so now I have to bring them to the ED, who's now taking out of my time. Ugh, how dare you. Now they're grown up. Now they're adult. Come on, guys. I'm gonna call you out.
Driving too fast for the road conditions and crashing.
Ooh, driving too fast for road conditions and crashing. Bad news bears. Yes. Amy, I saw your hands up. yeah, taking out of your day, right? Thank you for that. Well, oh, look at that. Oopsies. Yes, ma'am.
I chose not to show up to work multiple times. I didn't do my work and I got fired.
Oh, I didn't show up to work. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I lost my job. Yeah. I was rushing to get to work because I've lived 35, 40 minutes away from my job in New Hampshire, and I got pulled over and I got a speeding ticket. It's my only ticket ever, thank you, by the way. Okay, another example of a natural consequence. Anyway, that happens all the dang time, and I'm so tired of seeing that. You're on your cell phone, you're walking, and then bam, you walk into somebody, you knock yourself out of your hand. Put your phones down, okay? Next slide, we're gonna move on.
Oh wait, I have a really good one.
Jess has a really good one, so we're gonna.
When my daughter gets a speeding ticket and I make her pay it on her own.
Ooh, having to pay her. I mean, I feel like that's just how that should work. Yeah, natural consequence. That's a thing. Okay, this is our last breakout room. We're just about done. We get about 15 minutes. I'm gonna give you guys 10, okay? Adults, you're gonna stay in this room. Students, quietly and calmly, you're going to go into the activity room. Go ahead and move to the activity room now. Quietly, calmly. Walking would be lovely. We just talked about natural consequences. Running, you're gonna trip and fall, break your face. I would break my face. I'm so clumsy. I flip-flopped it. All right, parents, come a little bit closer together. Come on, don't be shy. Kumbaya. Let's go. There's a nice campfire right here. Gather around it. Let's go. Come on. You guys are gonna work together. This is the last thing I'm forcing you to do. I promise. Let's move it over. Okay, 2 groups is fine. We can do that. Okay, so parents, I'm gonna give you guys like 10 minutes because we're at like the 15-minute mark, okay? Maybe a little bit less. In your 2 respective groups, I really want you guys to think about reflect on your home life, okay? What is it like currently? Be transparent with each other, okay? Be transparent. Because you're giggling. Shh. Terry, you're a troublemaker, such a menace, okay? Do you feel like you already use restorative practices at home? What can you implement that maybe you haven't yet, or maybe you haven't at all? What do you think would work for you at home? How do you think implementing restorative practices will improve home life for everyone involved? So take 10 minutes, talk about those things. If you need to, if you need to split into smaller groups, do that. I don't care. Just have the conversation and go.
Think about restorative practices in schools. Think about what you already see is being done in the classrooms. Thinking about what we talked about. What we talked about already, if there are things that we talked about that you don't see being implemented in your school, if you think any of those things could be helpful, have that conversation, okay? What's currently being done? What do you think should be done? How is that going to be helpful for you as students making your way through your high school and middle school career? Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and have the conversation.
You do bet?
Guys.
Nobody. He's like 4'1".
Hey, Kevin. This guy.
Are you taking photos of other people there?
I think are kind of necessary, or some kind of community service. But I think community service or anything else is probably the best. Giving back.
Alright, so we're gonna recap. Here we come, Smarties. Okay. Little quiz, make sure you all are paying attention to me. Are restorative practices useful and how? Alan? And how? They help you learn from your mistakes and kind of keep you out of trouble, right? Okay, great. Anybody else have an example of how restorative practices are helpful, or do you think they are? They keep bonds between people, and it can mend the bonds that's broken, right? And it's not like the queen from the movie Brave. No, we have mend the bond, break the bond. I was gonna give you another one. Anybody else? Are restorative practices useful? Phoebe? Help you communicate. Beautiful. Okay. Well, can you pass it off? Be a good dude. Pass it off. Thank you. Okay. Can restorative practices be implemented in other settings other than school? Just raise your hand. Yes. Can they? Do you think that they can be implemented in other settings? Yes. We learned that, right? Raise your hand. We can do this together. Yes, they can be implemented at home, in school, in your workplace. What percentage did the University of Chicago researchers find as a decrease in out-of-school suspensions? 18%. Who said it? Okay, I heard it from over here, so we're gonna go like, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. Don't die on the bleachers, please. Be careful. What is one example of a restorative practice? Lucia. Community circle. Restorative circle. Oh, I'm not good at this. Yes, friend. One-on-one conversations. Okay, anybody else? What's one example? Yes, my friend. Talk to a counselor. Yeah, use the resources you have at school. Okay. Grown-ups, do you think that you will use restorative practices at home? Raise your hand. Just show hands. Adults in the room. Okay, I see a lot of hands, that's good. I think it's worth a try. And I was having a conversation with an adult over here a few minutes ago. It's not easy. I get in that headspace where it's not easy. My kids are just not listening to me. I'm ready to just give up or my brain's gonna explode. But you have to just keep at it. The longer you keep at it, it's like practicing anything. It's like practicing anything that you do, right? The more you practice, the easier it gets, the better you get at it. Just keep going. Eventually, you're going to be a pro, and it's just going to become common, normal practice and second nature in your home. Okay, so thank you everybody for attending. We have a QR code here and the link for the form. Please reach out if you want any advice on implementing these at home or in the workplace or anywhere else, or if you have any questions.